Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another live stream, and thank you so much for tuning in for another show. So, almost 3 months into this failed attempt that came from Israel in the 12-day war with Iran that was backed fully by the United States with participation too, Benjamin Netanyahu has more appetite to conduct an attack against Iran. In the past 2 weeks, we have been seeing actions inside of Iran that are linked to the Israeli secret services that were similar to the preparations that happened before the 12-day war with Iran. On the other hand, the United States is taking severe measures by now taking its troops and forces out of Ain al-Assad base in Iraq, which is one of the most important bases of the United States in the region, because they feel like a war is coming. Now, these two signs are coming with more reports, Iranian officials confirming day after day now, it's a daily norm in Iran, that we are fully prepared and they haven't seen everything that we have, and that the next battle will be more fierce and more destructive than ever. All of these are similar signs to what happened before Israel conducted the attack against Iran in June, just over 2 months ago. Benjamin Netanyahu has many reasons to conduct an all-out war against Iran in the short-coming period, especially seeing as there are no signs of de-escalations and no genuine signs that Benjamin Netanyahu will be accepting anything to do with the ceasefire inside of the Gaza Strip, something that is leading the Egyptian president to go to meet with the Saudi crown prince to discuss certain things that might happen in case Israel fully invades Gaza City, occupies the territory, and expels forcibly the Palestinian people to the Sinai Peninsula. This option is still on the table, and there are still forces lobbying to try and force the Palestinians into the Sinai Peninsula. In the meantime, Israel is rejecting the offer that came from Barak, the envoy to Lebanon, in relation to the de-escalation, and they're coming up with ridiculous demands to the Lebanese side to try and stop their aggression against Lebanon, because we're supposed to be in a ceasefire in Lebanon. All of these signs are showing that Benjamin Netanyahu is indeed heading towards an escalation, and things might explode at any given moment. Let's begin with the reports about this attempt coming from Israel to have an attack against Iran. Firstly, and I will share one of the videos with you. Last week, there was a report in Iran that the IRGC smashed 2 terrorist cells in southeast Iran. Very, very typical to Mossad operations. Now, Iran is careful with how they word things, and they don't outright blame the Mossad, but in many of these reports, they'll say it resembles what the Mossad does and did, and is in line with the operations and tactics that were used by the same groups that we found out and thwarted and took down during the 12-day war with Iran. This week, there was another attempt in the east of Iran, this time more sophisticated. You're talking about groups armed with RPG-7s, laser-guided, American-made M4 and M16 rifles, hand grenades, grenade launchers, explosive vests, handheld radios, a large quantity of ammunition, anti-personnel RPG charges. This just happened today. This report came out today. The terrorist group, and they're saying that most of them, if not all of them, are non-Iranian, by the way, intended to target a critical installation in eastern Iran. The planned target closely resembled military facilities struck by the Zionist regime during the 12-day imposed war, revealing the Israeli-linked nature of the terrorist team. Investigations indicated that the group had undergone specialized military training, including exercises on a mock-up of the intended target. These preparations matched operational patterns previously linked to Israel's Mossad spy service, with several past cases showing similar methods and training courses. During an intense exchange of fire, 6 terrorists were killed and 2 others apprehended. 3 Iranian security forces were wounded in the clash, including 2 from the Provincial Intelligence Department and 1 from the police. Officials said that the injured servicemen are receiving medical care. So we have an outright confirmation coming from Iran that these operations that are happening inside of Iranian territories are directly linked with Israel. They also published a video of the operation that took place with some of these terrorist cells in the eastern part of Iran attempting or preparing for this terror operation against a crucial strategic point in Iran. And the Iranian forces showed clearly how they took down the whole team by clearly again signaling that they were also linked with the Israeli Mossad, and that they showed similar patterns to how the Mossad operates and has operated inside of Iran during the 12-day aggression and terrorist attacks coming from Israel against Iran. These are clear indications that Israel is now preparing for even larger operations, but the fact that Iran is thwarting these attempts and burying them at a very early stages, this shows that Iran is way more awake than previous times, and now they have more capacity and more knowledge on the ground, more intelligence and clearer evidence to what is being done inside of Iranian territories after several actions took place by the Israeli terrorists previously inside of Iran during the 12-day war. Clear signs coming here that there is something cooking, there is something happening, and it's not just only coming from Israel, it's coming from the same administration that's giving Benjamin Netanyahu blank check to commit barbarism and famine and genocide and total destruction inside of the Gaza Strip. None other than the United States administration led by Donald Trump. What have they been doing? Well, several reports came under the radar in the past week about certain moves coming from the United States, again, very similar to what they have done before the June war that took place because they had information that Israel was about to attack Iran, even without supposedly this green light given by Donald Trump, although he later on participated. Theatrics, no theatrics, how effective it was, separate story, but he participated, and as a matter of fact, he was asking Iran to surrender. What did the United States do? Well, last week, they were saying that we want to withdraw our troops from Ain al-Assad, US forces in Baghdad, just to potential war. Why are they preparing for potential war? Because they have information, they have solid information that Benjamin Netanyahu is indeed intending to expand this genocide and this war and this barbarism. We've had threat against Egypt, we've had threats against Jordan, Syria, Lebanon. Israel has been attacking Yemen regularly, Iran, of course, and they still consider several movements in Iraq to be a threat for them, despite the certain understandings that came from the Iraqi movements with Israel during the early days following the genocide and when it began. But now we have a confirmation that the United States isn't only preparing to adjust, but the United States is actively withdrawing. It's beginning to withdraw its forces from Ain al-Assad base in Iraq. We've had confirmations, and this is now official. The United States beginning to withdraw from Ain al-Assad air base in Iraq. Mind you, some people are saying that this is due to the arrangements that the American side had with the Iraqi government to remove the remaining forces from Iraq following multiple requests. Don't forget that the Iraqis have a big problem with the United States president, the fact that these are the same forces that occupied the country, and the bases there are huge inside of Iraq, and they allow Iraqi airspace to be used by Israel to conduct terrorist activities in the region and against Iran too, not for the sake of the people of the region, but for the sake of a genocidal entity and expansionist ideas and plans coming from the United States administration to support its militaristic oligarchy and its policies around the world of brutality and more power and destruction for greed. But the main thing here is, well, what did they do? Again, let's link what happened in June to what is happening now. Suspicious attacks, Mossad operations. Iran's eyes are more open now. The United States threatening that things might escalate. 6 days later or a week later, they're withdrawing their forces, meaning, well, what are we expecting after this? Actions, US withdrawal, threats. What's next? Full-blown war. Will this be translated in the same manner that it did in June? Perhaps not, because that had an element of surprise at the time. So the element of surprise of Israel this time has to change, or somewhat change, because Iran would be in peak readiness. And guess what? Iran is already in peak readiness, and they are just waiting for the moment that these things would take place so that they can conduct a destructive response. The recent statement that came from Iran, and they have been making multiple statements recently, unlike how the situation was in for over a month ago, for example, they are confirming day after day that they are preparing for something very big, and that Israel hasn't seen what Iran is capable of so far, with the recent statement that came from the Iranian Brigadier General, who is also the Minister of Defense of the armed forces in Iran, saying that Iran is now testing new missiles and they have new capabilities that Israel hasn't seen previously. Now, this report is coming following several other reports as well that Iran just tested missiles. Again, these are reports coming up that have destruction capabilities that are unmatched and haven't seen before, especially ones that can target Israel. Some of them weighing up to 20 tons. Some of the reports said 80 warheads in one missile, each of them weighing 70 kilograms. Can you comprehend the level of destruction? Several thousand tons of TNT landing in multiple parts. I mean, Iran already disabled Israel in the previous round. Israel was humiliated. Israel was defeated to a level where they begged Donald Trump to come and give them a rope so that they can get out of this mess that they got themselves into. But that now, despite the fact that Benjamin Netanyahu tried to portray it as somewhat of a victory, is fading away, and Netanyahu knows that very well. And Netanyahu cannot handle that fact. Now, the reality is things are very far from what the Israeli genocide minister, Israel Katz, said, that we are now in a new phase and the Iranian airspace is free for our use and we can go there and conduct operations as and when we wish. It's very, very far from that. But despite all of this, they still want to conduct more attacks against Iran, and they are preparing heavily. Now, Iran has been preparing for the past several months. During the 12-day war, they were getting support both from Russia and China. China, of course, denies this support, but we've had so many confirmations that there are shipments coming from China, especially in relation to surface-to-air missiles or SAM missiles, and also manufacturing capabilities, equipment, tools that are required to build Iran's strategic missile capabilities. Israel was very, very worried about that, and there were multiple articles in Israel in the past couple of weeks that indicated that this worry is very serious, trying again to push the American side to tell China, listen, don't help them. But of course, China's outright denying, so there's nothing they can do. And they'll tell you the official policy is that we don't support countries at war. However, evidence again on the ground shows that there has been cargo going in even during the war that Israel conducted against Iran. Now, this isn't the only thing. And the Arab countries, especially the Arab countries that haven't fulfilled all of their potential to prevent Israel from continuing its barbarism, they are taking more steps. Yesterday, I spoke about the Jordanian moves, especially with the conscription now after 3 decades. More threats coming from Israel, with the Israeli ministers saying that the East Bank belongs to Israel, an outright threat, if not a declaration of war. Egypt is also concerned that things might go to their side too, because Israel's plans to expel the Palestinian population, forcibly expel the Palestinian population, and ethnically cleanse Gaza are still on the table, especially with the fact that they haven't succeeded in getting countries to agree to accept Palestinians in very big quantities and in very big numbers. So, how is that linked with the recent meeting that the Egyptian president had with the crown prince? Things have been tense slightly between Egypt and Saudi Arabia. But things have been more tense between Egypt and the United States. And before you jump to conclusions and tell me, yeah, we know, but we haven't done anything, they only do what they want, don't forget that the Egyptian president did not agree to meet Donald Trump. He refused an invitation from Donald Trump when the plan of the ethnic cleansing was still pushed very hard by the administration, and instead the Jordanian king went to the United States and then went back. There were no direct communications between the presidents. Of course, there are still communications between lower grades, but the tensions between Egypt and the United States escalated after that, especially seeing as Egypt already refused to take action with the genocide coalition inside of the Red Sea, after the United States established this genocide coalition to support Israel, of course, later on to only have a deal with them. But they wanted to take advantage. This is the typical approach of Donald Trump. He will try and make the best out of a certain situation or get as much as he wants, only for him to do a U-turn eventually and have a deal with whoever he wants whenever it suits him. So why is the Egyptian president in Saudi Arabia? Well, Saudi Arabia still has very good communication at the top level with the United States, and there have been messages there that all of the attempts coming from Israel to forcibly expel the Palestinians are outright refused, and that will never happen with Egypt, and Egypt will get into a confrontation if that campaign starts to get implemented. Now, why was that the main thing that they spoke about? Firstly, the reports of the actual meeting spoke about certain developments to do with investments and projects that they have and financial projects. But really and truly, you've had a meeting here with officials from both countries to do with the foreign ministers and the intelligence ministers and some security officials too. These people don't usually just talk about or talk about even at all financial things. They will, of course, they might include these things, but usually they will speak about matters related to security and things that are related to their national security. And it was mentioned in the reports that they spoke about the situation in Gaza and how that it's outright refused. So they're trying to send a message here to the United States and Israel too, because there is no communication between the president of Egypt, by the way, and the Israeli prime minister, that this will also lead to a war. And by the way, if you think, and despite the fact that Egypt doesn't want a war, and the administration in Egypt clearly hasn't fulfilled all of its potential with what they can do and the leverage inside of the Gaza Strip. But if you think that the prospect of that happening is not very realistic, then you're not really getting the whole thing. Because Benjamin Netanyahu is a psychopathic lunatic on a leash. Imagine you give a psychopathic individual weapons of mass destruction and tell him, do as you wish. That is Benjamin Netanyahu. And Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel's greed, because Netanyahu is the epitome of the Zionist idea. Forget about the fact that he is, on the right and he has extremists with him. Forget about that. This is a full, blunt, naked representation of the Zionist idea in full force. That's Benjamin Netanyahu, and that's Smotrich, and that's Ben Gvir. Whilst the others like to sugarcoat it and whitewash it and play as if they care about equality or human rights and what have you, and like to speak nicely, whereas Benjamin Netanyahu and his clan are blunt and say it as it is, which gives us more clarity at the end of the day. So, danger, escalation with Iran, with Jordan yesterday, and now with Lebanon, with their own mediators who are aligned with them too. But something might be turning here in the favor of Hezbollah in Lebanon, and I'll tell you why. Look at this here. Tom Barak, the envoy to Lebanon and Syria, he went to Lebanon and he spoke with the Lebanese side and with the Israeli side. And the last time he was in Lebanon, he said, now we need to see a step coming from Israel towards Lebanon. Lebanon said they're going to disarm, and regardless of, the fact that Hezbollah will agree or will not agree, because they clearly said no, so long as there's Israeli occupation and there are no clear mechanisms, we're willing to have the weapons within the hands of the state, so long as there's a strategic understanding and with negotiations, not as something imposed coming from the United States or as a demand from the United States when we have a Zionist occupation here and the United States is undermining the sovereignty entirely of Lebanon and its people. He went back, he said, Israel, now you need to have a go and then give us something in return. Israel gave vague answers. We might reduce targeted assassinations and some of the attacks that are happening in South Lebanon, but we reject the arrangement with Lebanon. And guess what? We want an industrial zone to be established across the border. Look at the audacity. Look at the audacity of these people. What do they mean by an industrial zone established across the border? That means they want 1.2 million Lebanese, the natives of Lebanon and of South Lebanon who sacrificed to liberate Lebanon, the brave people of Lebanon, the purest even of Lebanon, to be expelled from their homes and for Lebanon to have an industrial zone instead. Misplace 1.2 million. And if some of you think that this idea is like ridiculous, no, they were already planning. And they already have plans to expel some of these populations to countries like Iraq and other countries too, like Iraq or Iran. Now, this is of course putting the American envoy, Tom Barrack, in a very silly position. He looks silly now. Why? Because the people are exposing him anyway. You know, people are saying that, look, these demands to disarm the Lebanese resistance are coming from Tom Barrack. It reached a level where he started to have to deny, which is good, which means he's under pressure. Because the Lebanese government would look like puppets, right? Oh, we received an order from Mr. America, let's implement it here. So now, what is he going to tell the Lebanese people? He's going to tell them, I didn't manage to convince them. What are the Lebanese going to say? What is going to be the position of Hezbollah? This is where I wanted to get. The position of Hezbollah and the position of the Lebanese resistance will be stronger than ever. And if there is anything called strategic patience, this is where you'll see the fruits of this strategic patience. How? It will come by Hezbollah telling the people or telling the Lebanese side, okay, cool. Israel was attacking us. Israel was assassinating us. They had over 4,000 breaches of the ceasefire. We didn't even have one breach of the ceasefire. And despite all of that, you are unable to force them to withdraw from areas that they occupy. Not only that, Israel is demanding to expel people from their homes in Lebanon. I mean, how brazen these people are, how arrogant, how supremacist, how despicable. What is this entitlement? My gosh. Wow. Don't go back to your own lands and send the people to other countries and establish industrial zones inside of Lebanon, in the areas that are on the borders between Lebanon and Israel, because we want this to be a buffer zone. Can you get the picture? You have an escalation with Iran, with Yemen, with Egypt, with Jordan, with Lebanon, with Syria, all of that. And despite the fact that some of these countries are talking and trying to de-escalate and trying to have deals and diplomacy, no diplomacy, Netanyahu is on a mission, on a messianic mission, something connected to his spiritual belief. He said that, to have a greater Israel, religious war. We have a man conducting a religious war against the entire world based on fanatic, cultish, messianic, Zionist beliefs. And he is allowed to do that. Like a rabid dog, like a rabid psychopathic dog, butchering countries left, right, and center. And some of them are still saying, oh yeah, we might talk to them and let's try and understand and get some diplomacy. All of the signs show that things are going to get much worse. And what we have seen so far might be just the beginning of this whole campaign coming from Benjamin Netanyahu. And the days will show, because, you know, sometimes you have months can pass and weeks and half a year and this and that. All of a sudden, they'll do something and they're now closer than ever, because Benjamin Netanyahu is in a situation that is the worst type of situation that he has been in for a very, very long time. Moving on to another connected topic, but, you know, headlines in the United States, everyone is talking about the Epstein files, Epstein case. Release the files. We've had this video being published that is cut and edited with only one camera, because they said some of the cameras didn't work and we didn't see what happened in his cell. And one of the people, one out of the two people that was supposed to protect him, was on his phone. 30 minutes he went away. Somehow this Epstein killed himself, and then they showed his body supposedly with features that don't really match Jeffrey Epstein, but trying to prove that this was indeed Jeffrey Epstein. And they have the files. They have the files, they have the videos, they have the recordings, they have everything, and they promised that they would expose the whole case to the world. Didn't Trump promise that? Didn't the FBI director promise that? All of a sudden, U-turn. All of a sudden, Donald Trump is saying, oh no, these files are not important. He will get sensitive. Why are you still even talking about the subject? And why is this so important now? It's not important. And in another attempt to try and pacify the public, what do they do now? They say that, oh, Ghislaine Maxwell provided no incriminating information during meetings on high-profile individuals who interacted with Jeffrey Epstein. The transcript shows. So they're publishing a transcript now saying that Ghislaine Maxwell denied that Donald Trump and Bill Clinton had any sort of wrongdoing, and also that Bill Clinton was actually a nice guy and a good man, and she hasn't seen anything good from them. You're speaking with a leading figure in a pedophile ring. What is she going to say? What is she going to tell you exactly? And are we supposed to take her statements as what? A holy, sacred text? This is Ghislaine Maxwell, for heaven's sake. She was the woman who recruited, like a monster, went and hunted down these innocent American girls to go and be part of this pedophile ring, the biggest, worst pedophile ring in the whole world, led by a Zionist with complicity from senior figures and senior officials. If the list would be out, everyone would be exposed. But now they're trying to say, as if, you know, Ghislaine Maxwell denying that there's any sort of wrongdoing coming from Donald Trump and from Bill Clinton and from any senior officials is something that's supposed to pacify the people. I'm sorry, but this is irrelevant. This is totally irrelevant. What's relevant is the evidence. Why are you showing half videos? Why are you showing edited videos? Why are you not releasing all of the statements? You've had videos for years. Videos with the people. Jeffrey Epstein, he had thousands of cameras in Manhattan, his house in Manhattan, in his mansion in Manhattan, in every hole of the wall. He had cameras everywhere in his private island. He had cameras in his secret hub in his private island. Everything was recorded. Are you going to tell me that this man, you don't know what happened, what's happening, what's the operation? And some sort of statements coming from Ghislaine Maxwell supposed to pacify? No, this is way more than Ghislaine Maxwell statements. And this proves how much the American government is trying to hide all of the evidence and all of the information. And all of the pressure to release that information must continue, because this information will translate and will reveal to you and to everyone the scope, the level of the complicity and criminality of this operation and who's behind it, and why some people are making their positions as they are now. Why certain people, you might ask yourself, why are they taking that position? For example, why are they defending Israel? Well, Israeli Mossad C/CIA, son of Ghislaine Maxwell, her father as well, links with the Mossad to expose all of these people. Why don't you want to publish the information? It's crucial for everyone to know. The biggest and most dangerous criminal pedophile network on planet Earth, with senior officials that are supposed to be public servants operating in broad daylight. And they have the information. No statement from Ghislaine Maxwell is going to pacify anything. Jeffrey Epstein was allowed to have a private island with a private network communication system. He was allowed to have all of these people and all of these innocent girls, all of these victims who were lured into this monstrous network. Innocent American girls. They were hunting down girls who had problems in their life, who were facing crisis, coming from troubled backgrounds. And this woman who's denying and who's making the statements is the biggest criminal in this whole campaign, because she was recruiting them. Jeffrey Epstein wouldn't have done anything without Ghislaine. Ghislaine was the one going out there hunting and looking for them and reassuring them, by the way, you know, reassuring them, and this is the best thing that you're going to have in your life, and this is your exit, only for these girls to be hunted down, these pedophile rings that Trump and Clinton and other very many leaders and politicians and powerful people were involved in to some extent and somehow. Okay, so that no one takes it as a direct, you know, no, somehow, because, well, they were seen with Epstein and they were visiting Epstein and they were happy with Epstein, and many of them were on his private island, the same island that had these girls. And by the way, when some of them were trying to run away, they would send them people with suits and glasses, basically will kill you if you say a word. So no amount of comments or statements coming from Ghislaine Maxwell is going to stop the inquiry and the demand of the people to know exactly what happened. Don't try and fool the people with these stupid statements or stupid sort of revelations coming from Ghislaine Maxwell to somehow show us that, oh, no one is involved, you know, Trump is fine, everyone is okay. It isn't fine, and you need to release all of the files. And these were the main things that I wanted to share with you in this live stream. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in, and everyone who participated in the chat. Lawai and Z, Michael McIntyre, thank you so much for your super thanks as well. And everyone as well, thank you again for your participation. In the meantime, everyone, stay free, stay blessed, take care, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will see you soon in the next video. Peace, everyone. Salam.